Toastmasters. The topic for today is giving thanks. And thank you is such a common word we say it even without thinking about it. Someone holds the lift for us, we say thank you. Our children pick up their clothes from the ground and put it in the wash basket, we say thank you. My mother called me up yesterday to say she had couriered an outfit for me so it would reach me in time to wear for a function on Sunday, and I thanked her. In fact, when I get emails from people within Cisco, a lot of people's email signature have thank you on them. So we are thanking people all the time. But in the last few months, I've realized that there are 3 people who had immense impact on my life. And I would go as far as saying that they've changed the course of my life, but I have never thanked them. So today, I'd like to relate the incidents that involve those 3 people. And even though I don't know their names, I don't know where they are now, still like to thank them. The first incident was over 30 years ago. I was 10 years old, growing up in Delhi. And during the summer holidays, my father took me and my brother to the zoo. It was a very hot day. Delhi is a city of 8 million people, and I believe that 50% of them were probably in the zoo that day. Around lunchtime, we got really hungry. My mom had packed a picnic lunch. So my dad took us to the open food court area. We got a table very far from the kiosk. He placed us there, and we both wanted ice cream like children do. My father finally gave in. He left me in charge of my brother and went off a good 5 minutes walk away to get the ice cream. I had been given clear instructions not to leave my brother and make sure we both finished our lunch. 2 minutes into it, I decided that I wanted to choose the flavor of ice cream and followed my dad. We came back 10, 12 minutes later. The remnants of our picnic were there on the table, but my brother wasn't. The next 1.5 hours, I believe both my father and I definitely reached the nadir of our lives up until that point. We shouted out my brother's name. Total strangers shouted out my brother's name in the hope that we would find him. We called zoo administration and tried everything, and we could not find him. Finally, we gave up hope, and everybody suggested we contact the police. So we made our way back to the car, which was parked in the parking lot quite a long distance away. And there, standing with a shabbily dressed man, was my brother, who was 4 years old then. The man was a balloon vendor. My brother, like all other 4-year-olds, had followed the balloon vendor in search of a red balloon. And it was only after a few minutes that this person noticed my brother behind him. And when he asked him who he was, my brother could only tell him with the nickname that the rest of the family used to call him by. And when he was asked, "Who's your father?" he said, "Daddy." "And who's your mother?" "You idiot, Mummy. Who else?" And he could not say anything else. What else could a 4-year-old say? The guy finally asked him, "How did you come to the zoo?" And he said, "In a car." So the vendor took my brother to the car park where, like all boys, my brother was immediately able to pick out the car that he had come in. And the vendor had waited there for 1.5 hours on a hot summer day during the holidays, forsaking his business. I'm sure my father thanked him, but I did not. But even at that age of 10, I knew that had things turned out differently, I would have never forgiven myself. I'm absolutely sure my parents would have never forgiven me either. And it would have definitely changed the course of my life. So that's one person I need to thank. The second person I need to thank relates to an incident about 12 years ago. Wellington, New Zealand. I had a 2.5-year-old. And like most mothers trying to do everything with a very boisterous 2-year-old, I had given my daughter some blocks to play with, and I went off to have a shower. 20 minutes later when I come out, my daughter and I always had the game where she would hide behind clothes, behind curtains, or in a cupboard, and I would pretend to look for her, even though I know exactly where she is. So we started playing the game again. About 10 minutes later, I had searched under every bed, behind every curtain, every cupboard. I couldn't find her. And I thought, wow, she's getting better. She's really hiding herself well. Not yet worried. Went through the round again and could not find her. And then I realized maybe she was not there. I looked inside the washing machine. And again, you die 1,000 deaths as a parent in a foreign country, thinking all terrible things that can happen to children, that she had probably been abducted. Just as I was trying to muster some courage and call my husband to tell him that maybe Divya was missing, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. Standing there was a middle-aged woman holding my daughter, and I found out later that my daughter had walked out of the cat flap, made her way down the driveway, down a winding lane and onto the road where she was walking barefoot. And this lady who had been driving her car in there had noticed this little thing, had parked her car, picked her up, realized the child could not speak, she was barely 2, had been door knocking from that road upwards until she got to a house where someone told her that an Indian family lives in one of the side lanes. Why don't you try there? So she had eventually come door knocking to my place. I only remember bursting into tears and grabbing my daughter. I definitely don't remember thanking this wonderful lady. So I need to thank her too. By now, the two things that are very clear is that children in my family have no concept of stranger danger, would go to anybody who picks them up, obviously, and that my children will never leave me in charge of their children. I think those two things are very clear. The third incident is actually not about someone who's gone out of their way to help me or do something completely out of the ordinary. This is an incident where someone has done their job well, and that has definitely changed my life. About 4 years ago, I fell sick. Not really, really sick, but just sick. I used to have mild symptoms and take a few pills and it wouldn't get better. Went off to my family GP, who said, yeah, virus. Gave me some pills, it didn't get better. Okay, went back. Maybe it's not a virus. I went to a couple of specialists. Then they do all the tests. No one diagnoses you by feeling your pulse or listening to your heartbeat anymore. They have to write 5 pages of tests. So I had the x-rays, I had the blood tests, I had everything. But nobody could actually pinpoint what was wrong. They'd give me certain pills and hopefully it would get better, but it didn't. 7 or 8 months into this diagnostic process, the specialist told me that it's just stress, nothing else. Has the bell gone? I have to stop?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Continue.
It's okay. I'll finish it off anyway, that's okay. And I stopped taking all the medicines and everything, and I didn't get better. But a year later, my husband was transferred to Singapore, and we had to get a batch of routine tests done, and one of them involved an x-ray. An x-ray technician sitting somewhere noticed an anomaly, and he escalated it to a specialist. The specialist then again prodded, and finally I was diagnosed. The reason I'd like to thank this x-ray specialist is because he noticed an anomaly that 8 specialists before him had not, from exactly the same x-rays. The x-ray technician had not been given a history that I was having any kind of symptoms whatsoever. All he had been told is this is a routine medical, vanilla type x-ray. But he still did his job extremely well, with the same consciousness if a specialist had told him that this person was very sick. So I really need to thank these 3 people and thank all of you for listening to me. Thank you.